Well, good morning. Happy Friday, July 3rd. Happy Independence Day weekend. So let's get right to it. Holiday shortened week and market is not open today, but we saw mortgage rates give up about an eighth of a point. So we're about an eighth of a point worse as we close out this week versus where we started the week. Really, all the damage was done on Tuesday, June 30th, and that's just a function of the end of Q2. Bond traders shoring up positions, reallocating their portfolios. Bonds took it on the chin for that, and we wound up giving up a little bit of pricing for the rest of the week, relatively stable. I'll flip the screen around here and show you what I'm talking about. These are mortgage-backed securities, and this day in particular, June the 30th, is when all the damage happened. From there, we can see not a lot of other news to report. Although we did get some pretty interesting indications out of the labor market. So this is the Thursday's report for non-farm payrolls coming in at 57,000 jobs created in June. That is way below estimates, almost 50% of what the estimate was going to be. Around 114,000 is what we thought. Unemployment stayed relatively stable at 4.2%. We're going to talk more about that in a second. If you scroll all the way down the report to the very end, you can see they also revised the report for April and for May down. So those white hot labor reports that we got in April and May were revised down, and we got a weaker labor report here in June. This is going to be interesting to see as we move through the balance of summer towards fall. Do we continue to see this weakness in labor, maybe refuting some of that resilient strength that we thought we had back in the spring? But let's get back to talking about this unemployment rate of 4.2% because that is still very low. And what's contributing to it is the labor force participation rate. Now, if you strip out COVID, we are at a labor force participation rate that we haven't seen since 1976, ironically, the bicentennial. So that labor force participation rate, as it drops, it drags down that unemployment number because these people who are not actively seeking work or in the labor force are not contributing towards the employment picture and therefore not being counted in the unemployment number. It goes to make unemployment perhaps look a little bit better than it really is. In fact, let me show you this graphic. This is kind of interesting. If you go back 1 year ago today to June of 2025, we know unemployment was 4.1%, labor force participation was at 62.3%. Fast forward 1 year, unemployment's relatively flat, but the labor force participation rate declined substantially. If we had this labor force participation rate today, unemployment would be at 5.4% versus 4.2%. That's a big difference and something worth noting because we're sort of being shielded to a degree by the real face of what's happening with the labor market and the employment picture. And I think it's important to shine a light on this, perhaps a little bit more weakness in the labor market than we might have otherwise thought. Listen, 1 month does not a trend make. We have to watch what happens here now as we move through July, August, September. But if we continue to see this trend, this drop in labor force participation, particularly with younger people, where we're seeing this is 25 to 34-year-olds. If we continue to see this drop, we're going to continue to see unemployment low, but that does not necessarily mean all is okay with the labor market. Let's close out with one bit of interesting news. Bed Bath & Beyond has announced plans to buy Fathom Holdings for over, I think it's $50 million. And this is adding brokerage, mortgage, title, and insurance and software services to its home ownership platform. That's right. So Bed Bath & Beyond seeking to create this sort of closed ecosystem, not just of mortgage, real estate, title services, but also furnishings. So you're talking about this entirety of an ecosystem that it appears to be their goal to create. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. We've certainly seen other players in the marketplace, such as Rocket Mortgage, try to create this end-to-end ecosystem with their purchase of Redfin and Mr. Cooper, obviously for servicing on the back end. If I can be of any service to you over the holiday weekend, don't hesitate to reach out. Mark.Milam at highlandmtg.com.